Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Wise Conservative. My name is Dakota Wise, and today I'll be your host. So, coming off of the biggest news of the week, which is the results of Super Tuesday, I wanted to analyze some of the results and then, in particular, talk about a Hillary Clinton victory speech that she gave on Tuesday that was just appalling. Just absolute lies on her part. But we'll get to that after we first talk about what everyone has been talking about, so we're going to jump on that bandwagon, so to speak. The Super Tuesday results. Starting off with the Republicans, as was to be expected, we had a very strong showing from the Donald Trump camp. He is now sitting at roughly 319 delegates out of the 1,237 that are needed to win. He's about quarter of the way there. But I think what was the most surprising for the night, the most surprising was that Ted Cruz actually had a very, very good showing. Ted Cruz is currently sitting at 226 delegates compared to Trump's 319. And even further, Rubio still trails with 110 delegates. Very good night for Ted Cruz indeed. Up until this point, I haven't really decided who I was going to support out of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Initially, I was a Rand Paul guy. I think Rand Paul would make an excellent president. I easily, I would say he was the best candidate on the stage at the start of the primary season. After he dropped out, I've really kind of not chosen a side between the Donald Trump and the Ted Cruz camp. I've already ruled out Rubio. Rubio stands for exactly the reasons that the Conservative Party has been in decline and why the Republican Party no longer stands for true conservative values. So Rubio's been out of the question since the beginning. But up until now, I haven't really made a decision on Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. That changed last night. I think the only reason that I was still considering Trump was the fact that I didn't think Ted Cruz was a viable candidate. But last night, he showed something that I think is going to surprise a lot of people, and that's that he is not out of the race yet. He is still putting up a very good fight against Donald Trump. Now, let me warn everyone, because there's a lot of Trump supporters out there. I'm not anti-Trump. I'm not going to be one of the people who says that I will never vote for Trump. If Trump wins the nomination, then he will 100% have my support. But right now, I think Ted Cruz is the smarter candidate for the Republican Party, and here's why. Here's why that Ted Cruz actually, number one, Ted Cruz hasn't had this flip-flopping of ideals and values. Ted Cruz has not flip-flopped on positions. He has consistently, throughout the primary race, stayed in support of what I consider to be true conservative values. Now that differs from Donald Trump, who has really flip-flopped a lot, and not just in the primary race. The primary race, he hasn't flip-flopped that much. But what I find extremely concerning about Donald Trump is the fact that just 5 years ago, he was supporting a lot of liberal policies. He was a quote-unquote Democrat, and yet somehow these last 5 years he's suddenly become this staunch Republican savior. That I don't buy that, okay? I'm a little bit anxious when it comes to Donald Trump and whether or not he's playing up his actual values right now for the primary in order to gain the Republican vote. Okay, that's what makes me nervous about Donald Trump, because if you just look, not even digging up old history, if you look at recent history from this century, even this decade, Donald Trump was not that great of a conservative. And that's not what we need right now. We need someone who's going to go in there and actually fight for the conservative movement again. Additionally, Donald Trump, this is another big area that a lot of people are overlooking right now. Donald Trump has not talked a lot about his policies. Donald Trump has not actually told us how he's planning to get things done. Instead, he talks in generalities, okay? He talks for the common people, and that's why he's doing so well. He doesn't talk in all this policy and get caught up in the back and forth on how to actually accomplish things. But that is what makes me nervous, okay? He has a lot of grand plans, and he's said a lot of things that I can get behind. He said a lot of things I can't get behind. But he in particular, his immigration plan, I could get behind that, okay? But he hasn't said how he's going to accomplish this. He hasn't said anything about policy. And that's where I can get behind Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz actually has policies that would actually achieve things. He hasn't just come up with the most wild claims that he could in order to win ratings. Okay? And when you see Donald Trump, in particular when he's asked about policies versus other candidates, he does this thing where he kind of deflects the question and turns it into a personal attack on the candidate. Now, I don't know if I'm the only one who's picked up on this. I know I can't be. But a lot of people seem to be ignoring it. And if you actually sit down and analyze the stuff he says, he's very, very good at deflecting questions and then finding a way to spin it around on his opponents. Now, that might be useful in the primary election, but I don't think Donald Trump does that well against Hillary Clinton. I think when it gets to time for the actual election, and he's running up against a Bernie Sanders or a Hillary Clinton, I don't think he fares that well. And here's why. So if you sit down and look at what Donald Trump is actually trying to achieve, it's not all that conservative. He's actually extremely moderate, okay? But here's the kicker. He says these very, very, what some might consider far-right things. He's already turned a lot of voters against him, both on the Republican and the Democratic side. And the problem with the Republican Party right now, we do not hold a majority of voters. We are dependent on the independent vote. And Donald Trump does not do well with the independent vote. So that's what I find alarming about Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying Ted Cruz is a guaranteed win up against Hillary Clinton, but Ted Cruz is a very excellent debater, and Ted Cruz does not have any scandals, and Ted Cruz does not have anything absolutely crazy that he has said that will be used against him. So that is why I think I'm officially going to support Ted Cruz right now. A lot of people are saying he's the only conservative in the race. I don't know about that. Yes, he is the most conservative, and I would probably trust him the most to actually follow the Constitution and the values that this nation was founded upon. But I'm not going to say that I won't support any other Republican candidate. Now, speaking of Founding Fathers and the Constitution, let's go ahead and talk about the absolutely horrendous, in my opinion, the absolutely horrendous victory speech Hillary Clinton gave last night. I have a little bit of it. Go ahead and take a listen.
Because this country belongs to all of us, not just those at the top.
Ironic thing here, stopping it real quick. The ironic thing here, Hillary Clinton is worth $31.3 million. I don't know where she's getting this illusion that she is one of the common folk, or the common people in the nation. Now, she's worth $31 million. That puts her firmly in the top 1%. Kind of an ironic statement from the woman.
Not just to people who look one way, worship one way, or even think one way.
Right. She'll accept you as long as you agree with her and vote for her.
America is strong when we're all strong. And we know we've got work to do. But that work is not to make America great again. America never stopped being great. We have to make America whole. We have to fill in what's been hollowed out.
Like perhaps maybe fill in the Constitution that has been so blatantly ignored by her buddy, Barack Obama. But as a whole, that last segment in particular is what I found absolutely horrendous. The United States is trailing in math scores. The United States is trailing in science scores. The United States is $19 trillion in debt. Yet, somehow, she's going to claim that we don't have to make America great again. Okay? We have a weak economy. We have 12 million illegal immigrants in the nation. We have a border problem. We have a drug problem. You name a problem. Obesity. Education. All of it. We have any sort of problem you can imagine. And she's going to say that we don't need to make America great again. That we never stopped. I envy her optimism, because I wish I could be that optimistic about the current state of the country. But what I really wonder right now, is she being optimistic, or is she being ignorant? Because we very much have a lot of work that needs to be done. But I have seen no indication that she is going to actually do the work that is required to make us the great nation we once were. Because as it stands, the liberal movement, liberal ideology, Barack Obama and his buddies are the reason that this nation is in the position we are right now. Right now. It's 100% the liberal ideology, the liberal movement's fault. What is running this nation is politicians like her who stand up there and pretend like we don't have drastic problems that we face, and that they then get to Washington, have some pet project they want to work on, whether it's, gay marriage or global warming, some issue that is not very relevant to our standing as the number one nation in the world. Okay? And they go there, they work on it, they completely ignore the Constitution, because we've seen that President Obama, and we can infer the fact that Hillary Clinton is a third-term President Obama, will be more than willing to go around Congress, to go around the system that has been in place for over 2 centuries in order to get whatever she wants. Okay? We've seen that. We've seen that the Democratic Party is willing to twist and abuse the system. Which is not all that ironic, since that's the demographic that they're going for. But we've seen the Democratic Party continue to spend more and more money. They've continued to increase our debt at a pace that we will never, ever be able to pay off. And then pretend like there's no serious problem with it. You cannot continue to expand social programs and not have the money to fund them. Simple as that. But let's all sing Kumbaya and pretend there's not a problem. Let's pretend that America never stopped being great again. Please, stop this false optimism and actually go do something about it. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
This is Dakota Wise, co-host of The Wise Conservative Show, here with an exclusive preview. I can guarantee that all of these illegal executive actions that President Obama has tried to take would be ruled legal, and the president would be allowed to legislate instead of executing the law that the Congress and the American people have put up in front of him. For more content, find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative. We are back with The Wise Conservative Show. Is it weird to play a commercial for myself? I feel like it is. Oh well. Coming up after, well, I guess right now, after the break, we are talking about Mitt Romney and why he has a sudden interest in discussing the presidential race and who he wants to be the nomination. So, it's been pretty big breaking news all over the place. Mitt Romney is supposed to be giving a speech on the state of the nomination. I think the irony coming out of all this, number one, is that a man who should have won a very easy election, there's no excuse that he should not have beat President Obama in 2012, is going to be talking about who we as Americans should be voting for in our primary. Now, of course, Mitt Romney essentially represents the very reason that people are rebelling against people like Marco Rubio and Kasich and whoever else is even in the race anymore. I don't even know. Mitt Romney is the reason, because if you look at him, Mitt Romney had no energy behind him. Mitt Romney was sort of conservative, but, and this is where most of the American people don't like him, is the reason that he didn't actually care. Okay? He came off as only really caring because people wanted him to. He had no passion. He had nothing to back up the claim that he was a conservative candidate. I mean, just look at, Obamacare was practically based on Romney Care, that he developed during his, while he was governor, and Obamacare was practically written off that program. That's not conservative, number one. Number two, Mitt Romney needs to stay out of the media, okay? He had his 15 minutes, and he failed. And he's the reason that we have Barack Obama for 4 years. These last 4 years. That's his fault. I don't think anyone actually really cares what Mitt Romney has to say at this point. I'm just thankful he didn't have another presidential run, although I don't think he would have done that well this year. Mitt Romney just isn't. He is 100% establishment. And I was reading an article, and it talked about how Mitt Romney and the GOP leaders are getting worried about the Donald Trump and the Ted Cruz popularity. Yeah, they should be worried. Because the only reason that those two candidates are so popular is because the establishment leaders have failed to do their job. The American people feel betrayed. If you look at any of the exit polls that were conducted on Super Tuesday, one of the biggest reasons that Donald Trump and Ted Cruz supporters voted for that particular candidate is that they felt either angry at the establishment, or the second reason is that they felt betrayed by the establishment. Because we have conservatives in Congress and we have conservatives in the Senate who, quite frankly, lack a backbone. They've caved at almost everything. President Obama gives them a $4.1 trillion omnibus spending bill. You don't think they'd pass that, do you? didn't even object to it. It was passed so easily. Why? Why, you might ask? Why has President Obama been able to continuously feed the American people with his liberal ideology and continue to destroy this nation? Because the Republicans in Washington, D.C. don't have a backbone. They have no will to actually stand up and argue with him on anything. I know a lot of Democrats say that the Republicans have been obstinate, that we've obstructed the democratic process. I call bullshit, okay? As a whole, on a whole, okay, the Republican Party has been extremely nice to President Obama. They make a lot of noise, but in the end, President Obama has just about gotten his way with everything that he has wanted to do. That is why the American people are so pissed off. That is why the American people, the Republican voters, are voting for people like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. The establishment brought this on themselves. They deserve the fact that they're probably going to be kicked out of office. They deserve that, okay? They failed the American people. They failed the Republican voter. And now they're trying to save themselves because they see that they're on the Titanic. They're going down. One way or another, Donald Trump or Ted Cruz is going to be the candidate running against probably Hillary Clinton. There's almost no way of avoiding that. Yet they're trying every trick they can, and it's coming to the detriment of the party. Okay, the Republican Party, it's no secret. The Republican Party is extremely splintered right now, right? We have so many different factions within it trying to take control. We're not a unified party, and the Democrats are going to capitalize on that. But it's not helping when the GOP establishment fails to support a candidate who is polling extremely well nationally. Donald Trump, I think, has 40-some%. He's very close to 50%. And even if I'm a Ted Cruz guy right now, the establishment should not be trying to actively fight their front runner. I can't think of a time in history when this has ever happened, when leaders of the party have tried to actively fight a man who is polling very well within their party. It's completely ridiculous when you sit down and think about it. Instead of splintering the party, they should be finding a way to bring out as many Republicans voters, to bring and support as many Republicans as possible, because that is the only way. The only way we have a chance of beating the Democrats come November. This splitting the party, as much as I just went off on Hillary Clinton, I have to give her props for one thing. You notice during her speech, she was very careful to not alienate the Bernie Sanders supporters. And that's because she realizes that after Bernie Sanders is done, those supporters are going to be voting for her, unless she pisses them off somehow, right? Right now, the Republican Party doesn't realize that. So we have a good portion of the party that we need to vote that would be absolutely essential to beating Hillary Clinton. We have a portion of that party actively trying to fight Trump, and when the time comes and Trump or Cruz is the candidate, it's going to be difficult for them because they've had people within their own party fighting them. There's no unity. There's no organization. The party is a mess. And I've talked about it before, and I don't want to go into detail on this. Some people probably think I'm crazy for it, but I think we might be witnessing the end of the Republican Party as we know it. Because if we lose this election, I don't see how we can continue down the path the Republican Party has been on. I don't see how we can continue and expect to win elections ever. Ever, okay? Unless something changes. And Ted Cruz and Donald Trump represent that change. Unless something changes, there's no reason that the American people are going to elect another Republican candidate in the foreseeable future. That's the party's own fault, okay? The party has failed us. But not going into that in too great a detail. That is the reason that people are rallying behind Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And up until now, it seems that party leaders have been almost like, gee, I wonder why people want Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, or, mostly Donald Trump. It's because he's shown that he has some sort of backbone. He's not going to roll over and show his belly when, say, Obama requests to spend a ridiculous amount of money on programs that we know are corrupt and fraudulent. That's why, okay? It's no mystery. Donald Trump fans are not that confusing to understand. They're pissed off at the government. They're pissed off at the Republican Party. They don't really care if Donald Trump has a shady background. They don't care if Donald Trump might not be as conservative as they hope, because they just want someone on their side who will not hide their tail, and run from any battle when it comes to the Democrats. That's why they've supported Donald Trump. And I see everywhere. People don't understand it. It's not that complicated. The American people just want a strong leader again. It's really, really kind of uncanny how similar we are in a position compared to Jimmy Carter, 3-4 decades ago. Jimmy Carter left us with terrible foreign relations, right? We had the whole Iran hostage crisis. He had no foreign policy. He was a failure of a presidency, very similar to Barack Obama. And now the American people want to rally behind someone who's strong. That is what Ronald Reagan took advantage of. Ronald Reagan may not have been the most conservative man in the Republican Party ever, okay? But he is still known as the best Republican president, if not the best president ever. And why? Because he was able to unify the Republican Party, and he was able to project strength, not just here in the United States, but he projected strength throughout the world. Okay, people respected the United States again. That is what made Ronald Reagan the best president of modern history, if not of all time. Okay? That's what the American people want again. The American people want a strong president. Now, on final closing note, just because I brought up Ronald Reagan, I see a lot of people, I keep going to that, but I see a lot of people comparing Donald Trump to Ronald Reagan. I'm not going to go that far. Okay? I'm not sure if I believe in Donald Trump enough to compare him to Reagan. I think it's a bit premature to say anything. But if Donald Trump could pull this off, if Ted Cruz can pull this off and beat Hillary Clinton, even if Rubio, okay, any Republican on that stage will do a better job than Hillary Clinton, 100% guaranteed. Okay, so let's not fight within the party. Let's unify, let's beat Hillary Clinton, and let's take back our country. And quoting Hillary Clinton earlier in her speech, let's start filling in what has been hollowed out by the policies of Barack Obama. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this. That's going to wrap up the show. We have new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, airing at 6 p.m. Pacific time, not Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Check us out at youthrevolt.org. We are broadcasting as a member of the Youth Revolt Network. Good night, everyone. God bless you. Stay safe.